And we are back, as we are every day, doing the daily space weather, folks. First looking at the sun in 171 angstroms. We do see the looping of sunspot 2757 as it sets over the western limb. Some activity looks like it's rising here in the northeast, where my pointer is. You see a little bit of looping out there. And we've taken a custom image in 94 angstroms of the solar south pole, as we're going to be studying the solar poles and solar polar fields quite a bit in the upcoming months, as we await the ESA's Solar Orbiter 2 mission. And we are expecting any activity we see rising in terms of sunspots and active regions to be north of the equator. Here's a 193 angstroms view, and this is just from today, February 3rd, 2020. Looking at 9 hours of activity and looking at that massive coronal hole associated with the South Pole. Trailing that active region, 0 sunspots, and we see a reduction in the 10.7 centimeter radial flux. We did put up a video today on YouTube, this video right here, and it's just a close-up of the solar polar south field area, the south pole of the sun. And there's a reason for it, folks. It's because of Z fields, and we won't get into it on this video, as we've got to do the daily space weather. So let's get to some data here. Here's the GOES X-ray flux, quite flatlined. 10.7 centimeter radial flux still at 72, having dropped down. So a little bit lower radial flux there, no surprise, as we don't see any significantly active regions, no sunspots, etc. KP index is at 2. And let's look at cosmic rays. First, we've got Apatity and Barentsburg, both looking flat over the past 30 days. There's Apatity up top, and there's Barentsburg down at the bottom. Next, how about Athens, Greece? And there's the data at Athens neutron monitor. Leave that on the screen for a second for you. And anybody who wants to monitor these yourself, please feel free. We've left links in the description below the video to the Network of Cosmic Ray Station site. Next, let's look at Mexico City. And there is the data at Mexico City. A small downtrend in the past month, and by the way, you can access old data on this one. Moscow not sending data, so we'll ignore that. And next we'll look at the one featured on spaceweather.com, the Oulu neutron monitor. You can access old data here also. And while we're here, we will also look at DOMB Antarctica. One thing I would note here, I guess I got to say it every week or so, is that cosmic rays were at a higher level in 2010. And right there you can see the historic data from Oulu. Let's look at DOMC Antarctica, as DOMB Antarctica has not been sending data. And there's DOMC Antarctica. Tiny downtrend over the past 30 days. Again, we leave links to the Network of Cosmic Ray Stations site below the video. If you want to monitor them yourself, feel free. And if you see anything weird, drop me a line at smAsho@gmail.com. And next, let's look at the real-time solar wind. Phi angle currently around 250 degrees. Solar wind density 3.2 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed 382 kilometers per second. There's the data from ACE, and it's looking pretty corroborative. We did see some magnetic anomalies on the Earth in the geospace ground magnetic perturbations right here around 8:30 when the phi angle suddenly shifted. We'll show you in a minute after we look at the geospace magnetosphere movies from space. And thanks for tuning in, all you new spaced out viewers. As we look at cosmology from both inside and outside the Earth, and both inside and outside the heliosphere. Anyway, there's 4 hours of data, looking pretty steady in terms of the magnetosphere. Here are the ground magnetic perturbations, and you're going to see some global pulses happening here as the phi angle shifts. And not really any surprise to those of us studying the magnetic environment. We see perturbations in both North Poles, both the Siberian and the Canadian North Pole, as well as evidence of the South Pole creeping into the southern Indian Ocean. We're going to let that play a second time for you there, as you may not have caught those pulses. Wait for 8:30 UT, and you'll see magnetic pulses coming out of and going into the Pacific Ocean. Here it comes, and there you can see pulses kicking up, and then they get global just after that, right at the same time that the phi angle shifted of the solar wind data. Relativistic electrons are still at moderate levels, and we are expecting an uptick in the electron flux here over the next 24 hours, probably this cycle, as the spacecraft approach noontime, which is what these N's are. These are noontime for the local satellite, or midnight time for the local satellite. And here's a different graphic here. Notice we did nearly reach the electron flux alert threshold on the 1st, and we are expecting this to be over the alert threshold coming soon. So expect to see some GPS errors. Next, let's look at the ionosphere, as we do every day. And this is 6 hours of data. And we see these continued charge-up anomalies over the South Pacific, off of the west coast of South America. Been watching it for a few months, a couple of months now at least, pushing the 8-week mark. And we see a fairly charged up ionosphere here on the sun side. And the sun is over around this area right now, around India. And let's just bring up the latest image and move on, as there's lots more stuff to cover, including some human health stories and all kinds of things. And there you can see reaching 12 megahertz at 9 o'clock UT. There is the continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometers, as I forecasted. And the way we forecast that, folks, is by using the Gong 2 data. This data is looking pretty old. Let me see if I can get newer data here. And the latest data we can receive here is 5 hours and 28 minutes old. And this is the reason why we're expecting continued magnetometer spikes. And any activity we see, active regions or sunspots, we are expecting to see them north of the equator, based on the fact that the entire current sheet, at least the portion of it around the Earth, is South Pole charged here, shown in red. We see no North Pole portion charged up in our area. Now, I'm sure if you went north, you would find a North Pole portion charged up, but all right, let's get on to earthquakes here. 2 small earthquakes shake Pennsylvania over the weekend. Links to this article from Lehigh Valley Live. And they made it look very spooky there by showing all kinds of historic earthquakes on the USGS map. And let's go to the last 24 of earthquakes here. Nothing over a 6 magnitude. And we're just going to scroll up the list, noting any oddities. By the way, that earthquake you see there in Hawaii was closer to Kilauea's caldera. Actually, a bit south of Kilauea's caldera. And let's just see if we see any deep or large or odd earthquakes. Nothing too out of the ordinary here, folks. And we're just scrolling up the list. And there's a deep quake in Indonesia. That one is at a 4.3 magnitude and 149 kilometers depth. Here's a very deep quake south of Japan, 4.5 magnitude at 460 kilometers depth, folks. Here is a 5.0 at Fiji. That is 558.3 kilometers. Very deep quake. And 2 deep quakes coming in here a couple hours ago. This 4.8 came in at 5:02 Universal Time today. It's located near Papua New Guinea, and it's at 178.2 kilometers depth. Here is a 4.4 at Afghanistan. That one is at depth also, 109 kilometers. And that one there is at the town of volcano, and it's kind of associated with Kilauea's magma chambers, undoubtedly, kind of in between the Kilauea caldera and the ocean. Next, we'll look at windy.com's pressure maps. We're going to let that advance about 24 hours until about 12 UT tomorrow. And if you see any anomalous pressure zones, folks, please let us know. Anomalous low pressure zones do appear to be associated with earthquakes and perhaps has some predictive value. And let's get that paused. And let's move on to more data, like human health stories. Actually, first, let's do volcanoes, as they affect human health as well. Mount Bico erupting. Flight level 10,000 there, so that's a little bit of an uptick. Mount Aso. Possible activity. Don't pitch a tent on the lower slopes. Kachinarabu-jima. Flight level 3,000 there. Sakurajima. Flight level 8,000 there. Tal is back on the list now, as there's been an advisory once again for the Tal volcano. I didn't hear anything about any evacuations yet, as there are lots of people living in and around the volcanic lake around the Philippine Tal volcano. Mount Dacono, flight level 7,000. Popocatépetl exploding, 19,000 foot plume there. Fuego, 15,000 foot plume there as it explodes also. Sangay down in Ecuador. Volcanic cloud seen in satellite imagery, and Sabancaya unable to detect. Please do not pole vault Sabancaya. Were you aware that having smells increase your learning while you sleep? Who knew? Well, apparently SciTech Daily did. And this is a University of Freiburg article, so perhaps read about this. Quite incredible that quite conclusively across the board, it appears that having smells in your sleeping chamber shall increase your learning. So perhaps consider some aromatherapy, especially if you're cramming for that test. Now, we're not going to get into the way short-term and long-term memory works on this video. Also, another article, as SciTech Daily is killing it. Yale researchers find keto diet can be healthful or harmful depending on the timing. And those of us that understand the keto diet are probably not surprised by this. However, if you're considering the keto diet, perhaps read the article. And I, as an athlete, do not obey a strict keto diet, as when I need high intensity energy burn, I need to consume carbs. But overall, keto diet is super useful in terms of what it does to your appetite, what it does to your fat burning, and the benefits of the ketones. Coronavirus update. We're still updating it every day on smashamash.com/forum. So if you haven't checked it out there, it's a massive repository of information. Terrence has put up another one suggesting that the coronavirus may have leaked out of a vaccine lab where they're studying the most virulent strains to produce vaccines. Who knows? China built a hospital in 10 days, and we've picked up the AP article about that as well. So if you want to read all about coronavirus, we've got extensive information. You can link to it via smashomash.org. Just scroll down and click the link to see the newly unveiled forum, which has been a wild success. Finally, Chinese cases are leveling off here. And Let's just hope the reporting isn't leveling off, as we expected to see this go up more, and that is a good sign. And also this flat line at the bottom, where we don't really see any significant statistical increase in coronavirus in other locations. This Johns Hopkins real-time graphic is also available at smAsho.com/forum. So check that out. And there's the list of countries that are seeing some coronavirus. Death count is up to 362. Total confirmed cases over 17,000, folks. Expecting the stock market to crash today, if you were wondering. Now, the Vikings feared a climate catastrophe. The Vikings were very concerned about global warming, right? Survey said. Oh. What's that? The Vikings were worried about it getting cold, not worried about it getting hot, because they would be able to do things like farm on Greenland if it got warmer, and they would be able to do things like die and need to invade Europe if it got colder. Anyway, we linked to the article about this runestone, which contains 9 riddles. Let me just give you a hint. 4 of them are about human emissions of carbon dioxide, right? Survey said. Aw, man. No, it turns out that the runestone's riddles are about the sun and about Odin and his warriors. As the Vikings didn't think CO2 has any effect on the climate, because they didn't know it existed. Carbon dioxide is in charge of the Earth's thermal regulation. Survey said. Oh, geez. Man, oh man, I'm just batting a 0 today about my understanding of the Earth's thermal capacity. Anyway, here's a graph of the last 600 million years of atmospheric CO2 versus global temperature. And I've shown this graph to many people and had them say, what? The temperature was very cold when carbon dioxide was at 4,500 parts per million, over 10 times what it is currently? Huh. Links to this image from What's Up With That for you to share with your friends and your foes are below the video also. All right, enough of that. Let's get back into some data. There's where the lightning strikes are happening. We like to use lightningmaps.org. Check it out next time you hear thunder. And here's a U.S. Doppler radar map. Heavy snow falling in northern Utah and Wyoming, as well as quite a bit in central New York State. And there's a U.S. water vapor map. Got a long band of dry air stretching all the way from Baja California up into Colorado. And we're going to look at 2 zones. First, this overlapping low pressure zone over Western Virginia. And here's another fine example of you're getting a little bit of pressure inversion happening here. As you can see, there's low pressure moving over the top of that dry air. And that's what's causing that overlapped appearance. There's 2 systems here. This moist air is at a higher altitude than this dry air down here. And that's what's happening there. Let's also look at this other zone over Colorado. And we see more super interesting features there. The interactions between dry and moist air. And you can see those lines that are perpendicular to the mode of motion of the water in the atmosphere. And that is caused by the Hall effect, folks. Keep in mind, water is a polar molecule. And if you're in central Colorado today, get outside and look up. Also, if you're in southern Utah, western Arizona, or throughout most of New Mexico, you should see some very interesting cloud formations, including things like lenticular clouds. And if you want to see people who think that they're spacecraft, go to Mr. MBB333, where he doesn't understand what lens flare or most other basic physics things are. So check out that page if you want to lose an IQ point. Mr. MBB333, spreading ignorance and stupidity all over the internet with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Next, we'll check out the jet stream and extreme meridional jet stream flow, doubled up jet stream over the South Atlantic, doubled up jet stream over the Pacific, extreme bends in the jet stream. Look at those 180-degree bends, especially this one over the North Atlantic. Check it out, folks. Big time meridional jet stream flow. Here's the eastern world, and it's looking a little bit more coordinated over there. Let's look at some more data. But first, let me take the opportunity to thank you, the smAsho team, for tuning into the videos, leaving comments, checking out the smAshomash.com/forum, and getting involved in all kinds of other ways. Thanks the most to our patrons for being assistant and indeed associate producers of the show. If you've got ideas, submit them to me. It's smAshomash.com. You can head to smAshomash.com/forum and post a topic there. Do the free-for-all forums, introduce yourself, talk about whatever you want. We won't censor you. Drop me a line at smAshomash@gmail.com if you'd like us to do some kind of content. Did you watch our cosmology segment over the weekend, where we talked about all sorts of things like liquid metallic hydrogen and intercalate gases and cosmic rays and Z fields and coronal holes and all that sort of stuff? If you haven't checked it out, please do. Please follow on YouTube if you haven't gotten around to it, as we put exclusive content on all of the different social media sites that we're on. Share with your friends, share with your foes. We do regularly talk economics, and I'm just going to scroll down here on cnbc.com/markets, just so you see what the movers are doing here before the market opens. I wouldn't be surprised to see a pretty significant stock market crash today, although China is sort of dispelling some fears here about the virility of the coronavirus. Anyway, there's a bunch of data for you, and we're not going to go into it any more in depth. We're just going to let it scroll for a minute. We do talk economics on the channel regularly, and we actually did a little segment on it yesterday, so perhaps check that out. There are the European markets. Here come the Asia markets, which are not surprisingly down. And we're expecting like a reduction in things like oil prices today, for instance, as there is all kinds of evidence of global economic slowdowns. U.S. is still looking like a good place to hide your cash. And if you're considering cryptocurrency, if you haven't set up an account yet with which to trade cryptocurrency, consider using the links below the video. While we formally invite you to try Coinbase, I can earn nearly $200 right now, and you'll earn $10 just for signing up for the free account via our link. So check the description for that. If you want to try crypto, you can start out for completely free just for setting up an account. And we like to do bonus features here, so we've set up one for you. It's the 131 angstroms view of the local yellow dwarf. That's 48 hours of data, folks. We are out. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun. It's the Rosetta Stone of cosmology. And if you don't understand the way this star works, you don't understand the way any of the other stars work. When you're staring at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back, and may that atherosclerosis be absent from your veins.